Imagine a glass vase teetering on the edge of a shelf. A breeze knocks it off. It shatters. Next to it is a solid iron sphere, same breeze. It rolls slightly, unharmed. But now, imagine something stranger, a mythical black cube. When you drop it, it grows stronger. When you strike it, it multiplies. It doesn't just survive chaos, it feeds on it. That third object, it's not fragile, not even robust. It's anti-fragile. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The systems we're told to trust, our health plans, careers, economies, are like that glass vase. Beautiful, precise, but one shock away from destruction. Maybe you felt it last month when that unexpected bill hit, or when your stable job suddenly wasn't, or when the relationship you thought was solid crumbled overnight. We were taught to chase stability, to control risk, to optimize life until it's smooth, predictable, perfect. But the world doesn't play by those rules. It's messy, random, unforgiving. So why are some people crushed by it, while others rise from it stronger than before? Why do some collapse in crisis, while others transform? It's not mindset. It's not luck. It's structure. The strongest among us have built their lives like that cube, anti-fragile by design. They've learned a truth most never see. Fragility breaks under pressure. Anti-fragility grows from it. This isn't a motivational quote or a buzzword. It's a hidden blueprint used by warriors, philosophers, traders, and rebels who don't just survive life, they outwit it. They've cracked the code of disorder, turning randomness into power. They don't avoid chaos, they dance with it. And in this video, you'll learn how. Over the next few minutes, we're going to pull apart the lies of modernity, the traps of comfort, and the brilliance of embracing volatility. You'll discover why subtraction beats addition, why doing nothing often outperforms action, and how to design a system, your body, your mind, your portfolio, that actually gets better with stress. You don't need another plan. You need a system that wins even when plans fail, because when the storm hits, and it will, you'll either be the glass or the cube. So lean in. The next few minutes might just rewire how you think forever. Section 1. Fragile, robust, anti-fragile. Every object, system, person, or idea falls into one of three categories: fragile, robust, anti-fragile. That's it. And if you misunderstand these three, you misunderstand how the world actually works. Fragile things hate chaos. They depend on stability. One hit and they shatter, like a wine glass on concrete, like a company with too much debt, like a reputation built on lies. Robust things, they can handle stress. They resist. They endure, like a boulder in a storm. But they don't improve. They just survive. But anti-fragile things, they love disorder. They gain from volatility. They grow stronger when shaken, like a Hydra. You cut off one head and two more grow back. That is the secret third category most people ignore. Let's make this personal. Last year, I watched two friends navigate the same crisis, a sudden industry downturn. Friend A had optimized everything. One income source, perfectly calibrated. One skill set, highly specialized. When the downturn hit, he shattered. Friend B, she seemed less organized. Multiple income streams, various skills, some dormant projects. The same storm that broke Friend A activated Friend B's hidden options. She didn't just survive. She discovered opportunities in the chaos. That's anti-fragility in human form. Let's break this down with something Taleb calls the turkey problem. Picture a turkey being fed every day. For 1,000 days, everything is great. The turkey thinks, I'm safe, predictable, life is good. It even updates its LinkedIn to say, thriving poultry professional. But on day 1001, Thanksgiving, reality hits. The turkey wasn't robust. It was fragile. Its entire worldview was a lie based on what hadn't happened yet. Sound familiar? How many stable things in your life are actually turkeys waiting for Thanksgiving? The real world isn't gentle. It's full of shocks, financial collapses, pandemics, sudden betrayals, unexpected windfalls. And the problem isn't that these shocks exist. It's that most people build fragile lives that assume they won't. They build beautiful glass houses and pray for calm weather. Meanwhile, anti-fragile systems assume shocks will happen and position to benefit. They turn downside into fuel. A fragile investor bets everything on one outcome. An anti-fragile one holds options, small losses, unlimited upside. A fragile business relies on flawless supply chains. An anti-fragile one has backups, slack, and redundancy. But here's the trick. Antifragility is invisible when times are good. That's why most people ignore it, until it's too late, until the storm comes, until the system snaps. And then, those who designed for chaos rise through it. What Taleb shows us is a new way to read the world. To stop trusting stability, to start seeking convexity. You don't have to be perfect, you have to be built right. So, pause for a moment. What in your life is fragile? What would collapse under pressure? What relationships, income streams, beliefs, health patterns are waiting for Thanksgiving? Write one down, seriously. Pause the video and write it, because awareness is the first step. And then ask, what could you redesign to grow from shocks instead of fearing them? The first principle to understand is this: seeing the categories clearly, naming what breaks, what resists, and what thrives. But seeing isn't enough. If you want to become anti-fragile, you'll need to do what nature does. And nature never avoids stress. It uses it. Ready to learn how? Type Hydra in the comments. If you're ready to discover how pain becomes power. Section 2, how to become a Hydra. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, if your system is designed that way. If not, it just leaves scars. But imagine if every hit you took, every failure, every setback, made you not just tougher, but better. Imagine being like the Hydra, cut off one head and two grow back. That's not fantasy, that's anti-fragility in motion. And nature is full of it. Your muscles don't grow when you rest. They grow when you tear them down. Your immune system strengthens not in silence, but in the presence of small threats. Your emotional grit? It never forms from comfort. It forms in heartbreak, in rejection, in the days you think you can't go on, but you do anyway. I learned this the hard way. 5 years ago, I avoided every uncomfortable conversation. Conflict made me sick. Then life forced me into a situation where I had to speak up or lose everything. That first confrontation, I was shaking. My voice cracked. But something strange happened. The next difficult conversation was slightly easier, then the next. Within 6 months, I was having conversations I couldn't have imagined before. The stress didn't break me. It rebuilt me. That's Hormesis in action. This process, Hormesis, means a small dose of harm strengthens the system. A tiny bit of poison, paradoxically, creates resilience. It's why vaccines work, why cold plunges are trending, why fasting builds more than discipline. It builds metabolic toughness. Here's a simple protocol to start. Tomorrow morning, end your shower with 30 seconds of cold water. Just 30 seconds. Your body will scream. Your mind will resist. Do it anyway. Then notice how you feel after. Alert? Alive? That's your system learning to adapt. Build to 2 minutes over a month. Watch how your relationship with discomfort transforms. But here's the deeper lesson. Anti-fragile systems are designed to need stress. Without it, they decay. Without it, they become fragile. Look at the astronaut who spends months in zero gravity. No resistance, no pressure, muscles waste, bones weaken. The body forgets how to fight. The same happens to minds coddled by comfort. They lose the will to think sharply, act decisively, or face uncertainty with grace. We're creating a generation of astronauts on Earth, floating in comfort, weakening by the day. The ancient Spartans knew this. They deliberately exposed themselves to discomfort, hunger, cold, heat, pain. These were teachers, not punishments. Their training wasn't about looking tough. It was about becoming unbreakable. Today, we run from anything that feels unpleasant. We design apps to remove friction, schools remove failure, parents remove difficulty. And yet, we wonder why anxiety is at an all-time high, why we feel brittle, soft, reactive. Taleb would argue it's because we've removed the very stressors that once made us strong. There's a beautiful example from my own life. I have a friend who's a trader, one of the best, but he didn't start that way. His first year, he lost everything, burned through savings. Reputation shattered. Most would quit. He didn't. Instead, he journaled every mistake, built a model from his losses, created what he called his failure library. Within 5 years, he became one of the top hedge fund managers in his field. He didn't bounce back, he transformed, not despite the stress, but because of it. Now he says, I don't fear losses anymore. I study them. They're my teachers. The Hydra isn't a symbol of aggression. It's a symbol of structural wisdom. It doesn't resist the sword. It multiplies because of it. That's how you become antifragile. You create feedback loops that benefit from setbacks. You reframe pain as adaptation. You don't seek harm, but you don't hide from it either. Every time you feel emotional discomfort, every time you hit resistance, you get a choice. Do you collapse or compound? Quick exercise. Think of one area where you've been avoiding discomfort. Maybe it's a workout routine, a difficult conversation, a skill that frustrates you. This week, lean into it for just 10 minutes. Not an hour, just 10 minutes of intentional discomfort. Watch what happens, not just to your ability, but to your identity. The Hydra doesn't survive by strength alone. It survives by strategy. And the most powerful strategy? It's not what you'd expect. It's not about balance or moderation. It's about extremes. Let me show you why the middle is where dreams go to die. Most people live in the middle. Not too risky, not too safe, not too slow, not too fast. They believe balance is safety, moderation is wisdom, and that the middle path protects them from extremes. It's like wearing a seatbelt while sitting on your couch, technically safer, but missing the point entirely. Because in the real world, the world of markets, biology, and survival, the middle is where fragility lives. Taleb offers a better design, the barbell strategy, and it flips everything you've been taught upside down. The barbell is simple. On one end, you hold extreme safety. On the other, extreme risk. And in the middle, nothing, zero. That's where most people get destroyed, trying to balance between chaos and comfort. Think of a real barbell in the gym. Heavy plates on both sides, nothing in between but air. That's how your life, your investments, even your time should be structured. Let me tell you about Maria. She's a designer who spent 10 years as a balanced freelancer. Not too many clients, not too few. Steady, moderate income, playing it safe in the middle. Then 2020 hit. Half her clients vanished overnight. Her balanced approach crumbled. Compare that to her colleague James. He kept a boring day job, maximum security, while building wild side projects at night. When the crisis hit, his day job protected him. When one of his crazy projects suddenly found its moment, he made more in 6 months than Maria made in 10 years. That's the barbell in action. For example, in finance, Taleb's own portfolio was 90% ultra-conservative assets, cash, T-bills, boring safety, and 10% wild options, bets with limited downside but massive upside. The 90% made sure he didn't die. The 10% made him rich. Nothing in the middle. No complex products, no fragile balancing acts. When 2008 hit, while balanced portfolios burned, his barbell thrived. But this isn't just about money. It's a lens for designing everything. Let's take your energy. Right now, you're probably living in the middle, moderately tired, moderately engaged, moderately everything. Instead, try this. 90% of your week should be structured for stability. Great sleep, simple food, deep rest. Protect your foundation ruthlessly. But 10%, that's your wild zone, the risk, the thing that scares you, the cold plunge, the improv class, the new business pitch, that one uncomfortable conversation. Most people won't understand. They'll say you're being reckless or lazy. They won't see the design. The problem with the middle isn't that it's boring, it's that it's exposed. The middle is where systems look stable, until they're not. Where you over-leverage, over-schedule, overcompensate. Think of someone who works 60-hour weeks for a decent salary, takes no risks, and has no backup. They think they're being responsible. But they're actually sitting on a one-legged stool. One job loss, one illness, one market shift, and the whole thing collapses. Now compare that to someone who has a barbell life. A stable base of essentials covered, and wild bets in side projects, learning, or investments. They might seem unconventional. People might whisper, "Why is she wasting time on that weird project?" But they're designed for uncertainty. When chaos hits, they don't break. They have options. When opportunity appears, they can pounce. Here's how to build your first barbell. Pick one area of your life, let's say learning. Spend 90% of your learning time on boring foundational basics. If you're in business, that's accounting, writing, basic psychology. Unsexy but essential. Then spend 10% on something wild, blockchain, poetry, lucid dreaming, something with no clear payoff. Watch what happens over a year. The basics keep you solid. The wild bets, One of them might change everything. The barbell strategy isn't just about money or time, it's a mindset. You stop trying to optimize the middle. You stop believing in balance. You start building a life with a rock-solid foundation and unlimited upside. Structure your health like a barbell, clean habits plus intermittent challenges. Structure your relationships, deep, stable connections, and the courage to pursue wild conversations. Quick gut check. Where are you sitting in the middle right now? Where are you trying to balance two incompatible goals? Comment below with one area where you're stuck in the middle. Sometimes naming it is the first step to escaping it. Now that you understand how to structure for extremes, let's talk about something even more counterintuitive. What if the secret to getting stronger isn't adding more to your barbell, but taking weight off? What if less isn't just more, it's everything? Section 4. Via Negativa, subtract to strengthen. We've been taught to fix things by adding more tools, more routines, more data. It's like trying to cure a headache by putting on another hat. But what if that's the reason things break? What if the real path to strength is subtraction? Taleb calls this via negativa, the way of removal. It's one of the oldest ideas in philosophy, and one of the most ignored in modern life. While everyone chases hacks, upgrades, and optimizations, Antifragility whispers something simpler. Less is not just more, it's survival. Last year I did an experiment. I was drowning in productivity apps, 7 different tools to optimize my day. You know what happened? I spent more time managing the apps than doing actual work, so I deleted them all. Every single one, kept only a notebook and a timer. First week was chaos. By week 2, I was getting more done than I had in months. Not because I found a better system, but because I removed the systems that were failing. That's via negativa in practice. Think of a river clogged with debris. It doesn't need more water pressure, it needs clearing. Think of your mind on a Monday morning. It doesn't need 5 more productivity apps. It needs silence. In a world drowning in complexity, via negativa offers clarity through elimination. Instead of asking what to add, ask, what can I remove that is making this fragile? That's how you strengthen your body, your thinking, your systems. Not by layering more on top, but by carving away the weak. One of the best examples? Medicine. We often assume more treatment equals better care, but studies show that over-medication, especially in the elderly, kills more people than it saves. Not because of negligence, but because of excess. Too many variables, too many interactions, too much noise. The best doctors I know, they prescribe less, they observe more, they interfere only when necessary, and their patients, paradoxically, live longer. One doctor told me, my job isn't to add treatments, it's to remove everything that's not healing. The same is true in markets. The more complex your investment strategy, the more moving parts that can fail. The fragile trader tweaks endlessly, trying to optimize every edge. The anti-fragile one, he simplifies. He removes leverage, removes dependence, removes the need to be right every time. Warren Buffett puts it perfectly. I don't look to jump over 7-foot bars. I look for 1-foot bars I can step over. That's via negativa, removing the need for heroics. There's a story of a Japanese Zen garden master. When asked how he creates such peaceful, powerful spaces, he simply said, I remove everything that is not the garden. Not I add the perfect stones. Not I optimize the water flow. Just, I remove everything that is not the garden. That's via negativa. That's anti-fragile minimalism. It's not aesthetic, it's functional. It makes your system lighter, faster, less breakable. Here's a practical exercise for this week. Look at your calendar, your habits, your commitments, your apps. Choose one area and remove 20%. Not optimize, not reorganize, remove. Delete the meetings that drain you. Unsubscribe from the newsletters you don't read. Cut the habits that pretend to help but actually hurt. Say no to the obligations that exist only because you never questioned them. The writer who stares at a blank page doesn't need another technique. She needs to remove the fear of writing badly. I learned this myself. For years, I collected writing courses, methods, frameworks. My computer was full of systems. You know what finally worked? I deleted everything except a blank document, told myself, write garbage for 20 minutes every morning. Removed the pressure of perfection. Within a month, I was writing more and better than ever. You want freedom? Subtract obligations that don't serve you. You want peace? Subtract toxic people. And yes, that includes toxic digital people. You want clarity? Subtract the noise pretending to be signal. We think life is about addition, but the strongest lives are sculpted, carved, designed through intentional deletion. Quick challenge. Name one thing you can subtract this week, not tomorrow, this week. Comment it below. Make it public, make it real. Because the hardest part of Via Negativa isn't knowing what to remove, it's having the courage to actually remove it. But even when we subtract, many still try to perfect what remains. They polish and optimize until it gleams. And that too can be a trap. Because when perfection becomes the goal, fragility creeps back in, wearing a different mask. Section 5. The optimization trap. It looks beautiful, the perfect system. Clean dashboards, automated rules, smooth feedback loops. Everything dialed in to the decimal. It's like organizing your sock drawer while your house is on fire. Satisfying, but ultimately pointless when reality hits. Because underneath that shine is danger. The more you optimize, the less slack you allow. And the less slack, the more one small failure becomes catastrophic. That's the trap. Optimization isn't evil, but chasing it too far? That's how fragility sneaks in, dressed as brilliance. Software engineer, brilliant guy, he optimized his entire life. Perfect morning routine timed to the minute. Meal prep calculated to the macro. Calendar blocked in 15-minute increments. It worked beautifully, until his first child arrived 2 weeks early. His perfect system had no room for a crying baby at 3 a.m. No flexibility for doctor visits, no slack for sleepless nights. Within a month, his optimized life looked like a dropped house of cards. Meanwhile, his messy neighbor Sarah, single mom, seemingly chaotic schedule, adapted instantly. Why? Her life had slack, room to breathe, space for life to happen. Taleb warns us, what looks efficient in calm conditions often collapses in chaos. A tightly optimized supply chain saves money until one ship gets stuck in a canal and suddenly there's no toilet paper anywhere. A hyper-optimized health routine builds muscle until one joint snaps and takes 6 months of progress with it. A business optimized for every penny of profit thrives until one client leaves and the whole model breaks. Let's go back to 2008. The financial world was running on beautiful models, risk management equations that worked perfectly on paper. Every bank had optimized their risk. Hedge funds had squeezed out every possible cent of efficiency. The models were gorgeous, Nobel Prize minus winning mathematics, until a few assumptions broke, correlations spiked, liquidity dried, and what was once an elegant machine became a $30 trillion crater. The lesson wasn't that math is bad. The lesson was that optimization based on false stability is just fragility in disguise. Nature gets this. Your body doesn't operate with perfect efficiency. It has backups, redundancy, waste. 2 kidneys when one would do. Extra lung capacity you'll never use. Fat stores for famines that might never come. That's not inefficient. That's intelligent design for a world that's unpredictable. Your body assumes chaos. Modern optimization assumes order. Here's how to spot if you're in the optimization trap. Ask yourself, does this system break if one thing goes wrong? Can I be 20% less efficient and still function? What happens if my assumptions are wrong? If the answer scares you, you're over-optimized. You've built a beautiful glass sculpture in an earthquake zone. There's a story of a brilliant young trader I knew, spent 2 years back-testing the perfect algorithm, found the optimal strategy, peak efficiency. The model was beautiful, like looking at a Swiss watch. It worked flawlessly for 6 months. Then 1 week, the market behaved irrationally. Not wrong, just different than historical patterns. The losses wiped out 2 years of gains in 3 days. When asked what went wrong, he said, "The model wasn't broken. Reality was." I wanted to shake him. No, kid. The model was fragile, and reality simply revealed it. So, here's the uncomfortable truth. The more precise your plan, the more you suffer when it breaks. Build imprecise but resilient systems. Allow room for sloppiness, for play, for breathing space. Optimize for survivability, not perfection. Because life isn't a laboratory, it's a jazz performance, and you better know how to improvise. This week's experiment, take one optimized system in your life and deliberately add 20% slack. If you meal prep for 7 days, prep for 5. If you schedule every hour, leave 2 unplanned. If you have 1 income source, start exploring a second, even if it's tiny. Build in the assumption that something will go wrong, because it will. And when it does, you'll thank yourself for the breathing room. Comment below. What's one area where you've over-optimized? Where have you squeezed out all the slack? Name it, because awareness is the first step to building something that lasts. Now here's where it gets really interesting. What if I told you that you don't need to predict the future to win? What if the smartest people aren't the ones who guess right, but the ones who don't need to guess at all? Most people spend their lives trying to predict the future. They study trends, analyze charts, listen to experts, and tweak forecasts. It's like trying to predict where a butterfly will land by calculating wind patterns. Meanwhile, a kid with a net doesn't need to predict. He just positions himself where butterflies gather. That's the secret Taleb reveals. You don't need to predict what will happen. You only need to position yourself to win, regardless of what happens. That's the secret of optionality. And it's how anti-fragile systems thrive. I learned this lesson in the strangest way. 5 years ago, I had coffee with a seemingly unsuccessful entrepreneur. 5 failed startups. No big exits. I almost felt sorry for him. Then he smiled and said, "But the 6th one. Turns out each failure had given him equity, connections, or skills. When one of those failed companies got acquired, his tiny stake became 7 figures. He wasn't predicting winners. He was collecting options. Smart? No. Anti-fragile. Optionality means having choices, having access to upside without being trapped by downside. It's asymmetric. You risk a little to gain a lot. You survive most of the time and explode in value when the right moment comes. It's not about being right. It's about not needing to be right. That's how evolution works. That's how startups win. That's how people stumble into success they never planned, while others with perfect plans go nowhere. There's a story about a man who made a tiny investment in a weird little startup. He didn't understand the tech, didn't believe in the business model, but he liked the asymmetry, lose a little or win a lot. He put in $25,000, forgot about it. Years later, that company became Uber. His investment? Worth over $100 million. Did he predict the future of transportation? No. He just gave himself a seat at the table. He bought optionality. But here's what most people miss. Optionality shows up everywhere, not just in investments. A second language you learn for fun becomes the reason you get hired. A random skill you picked up in college becomes your entire career. A person you helped with no expectation becomes your biggest opportunity. Most people say, "That's not worth my time." But the anti-fragile person knows. The value isn't in the expected outcome. It's in the unpredictable upside. Think about your own life. Are you structured around a few fixed outcomes? One career path? One stream of income? One narrow identity? If that path gets blocked, what happens? That's fragility disguised as focus. Because if life hits that one thing, you lose everything. But optionality? It's a garden of maybes. Most seeds die, but a few blossom so wildly they change your entire landscape. Here's a practical way to build optionality. Every month, plant 3 small seeds with these criteria. Low downside, minimal time or money. High potential upside, could be valuable if it works. And no need for it to succeed. You're fine if it fails. Examples. Reach out to one interesting person. Try one new skill for 5 hours. Start one tiny experiment. Write one article. Make one small investment. Most will go nowhere. That's fine. You're not predicting. You're positioning. Taleb says optionality is found, not forced. You don't create it by planning harder. You discover it by exposing yourself to environments where the upside is open-ended and the downside is capped. It's the barbell principle in action. Protect the base. Let the edges explore. Don't bet the farm. But do place small bets everywhere. The fragile mind demands clarity before action. It says, "Show me the ROI. Prove this will work. Guarantee the outcome." The anti-fragile mind moves with curiosity. It says, "This might go nowhere, but if it goes somewhere." That's why the best careers weren't planned. They were discovered through random walks. That's why the most fulfilling relationships often came from unlikely starts. That's why the most powerful growth happens when you aren't chasing guarantees, but exposing yourself to possibility. Quick reflection. What's one small bet you could make this week? Something with limited downside but unlimited upside. Don't overthink it. The point isn't to be right. The point is to be in the game. Share it below. Let's see what options we're all planting. And here's the paradox. The less you try to control the outcome, the more you gain from it. But how do you know what's actually worth betting on? What lasts? What matters? For that, you need a filter stronger than hype or headlines. You need the filter of time. Section 7, the filter of time. In a world obsessed with the new, Taleb invites us to flip the lens. Don't ask what's trending. Ask what is endured. It's like choosing between a restaurant that opened last week with lines around the block, or the tiny place that's been there for 50 years. The new place might have better Instagram photos, but the old place, it's survived recessions, trends, and 10,000 reasons to fail. That survival is information, because what has survived time has been tested by it. Weathered chaos, randomness, and thousands of moments that could have killed it, but didn't. That's the Lindy effect, and it's one of the most underrated tools of anti-fragile thinking. The Lindy effect says this: the longer something has existed, the longer it's likely to exist. A book that survived 500 years will probably survive 500 more. A tradition that's been practiced for millennia has already passed 1,000 invisible stress tests. While the new may glitter, the old has proven its durability. And durability is a proxy for truth. I learned this lesson embarrassingly late. Spent years chasing every new productivity system. GTD, Pomodoro, fancy apps with AI integration. You know what finally worked? A paper notebook. The same tool Da Vinci used. The same tool your grandmother used. It never crashes, never needs updates, never distracts with notifications. It just works. That's Lindy in action. The old solution often beats the new innovation. Thousands printed every year, most vanish within months. But Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, still read, still relevant, still piercingly true after 2,000 years. It's not because it was better marketed, it's because it speaks truths that don't break under pressure. Same with religious texts, ancient philosophies, classical literature. They're not old, they're proven. We apply this without thinking. You trust bridges designed with principles used for centuries, not with software beta tested last Tuesday. You take advice from someone who's been married 40 years over someone who just got engaged. You learn recipes from your grandmother, not from a molecular gastronomy blog. Time is the ultimate filter because it reveals what even intelligence can't predict, what actually works over the long arc of disorder. This applies everywhere. Want a workout that will last you 30 years? Choose something ancient. Walking, lifting heavy things, martial arts. Want a diet that doesn't break down? Look at what your great-grandparents ate. Want a business model that survives? Study what's worked for centuries, solving real problems for real people. But the real power of the Lindy effect lies in mindset. It changes what you value. It trains your eyes to see past the flash of the moment. When someone promises a revolutionary new method, you ask, what old truth is this replacing? When a new technology appears, you wonder, what human need has this served for centuries? You stop chasing novelty. You start recognizing patterns. There's a beautiful example from investing. A fund manager I know has a rule. He only invests in businesses using models that existed before 1900. Sounds crazy? His returns beat 90% of innovative funds. Why? Because selling food, shelter, transportation, entertainment, these needs are Lindy. They've existed forever. They'll exist forever. The delivery method might change. The need doesn't. Here's your Lindy filter test. Before adopting anything new, a habit, a belief, a practice, ask yourself, has something like this worked for at least 100 years? If not, be skeptical. If yes, pay attention. Not because old is automatically good, but because old and still alive means it's been tested by reality in ways no theory can replicate. This week, try replacing one innovative solution with an ancient one. Swap your meditation app for sitting in silence. Trade your fitness tracker for listening to your body. Replace your complex investment strategy with buying what you understand. You can watch what happens. Often the old way isn't just simpler, it's stronger. Comment below. What's one new thing in your life you could replace with something Lindy? Sometimes the future is actually found in the past. Now, speaking of modern innovations that might be making us fragile, let's talk about the thing that's probably pinging you right now. The endless stream of urgent information that's actually just noise wearing an important costume. Section 8. The silent strength. Why? Ignoring noise makes you powerful. Imagine a trader glued to 5 screens, CNBC blaring, Twitter feeds flashing price ticks and hot takes every second. Heart racing with each red candle, celebrating every green one. He thinks he's informed, he thinks he's in control, but he's drowning in noise. Taleb would take one look and say, "This man isn't trading. He's having an anxiety attack with financial consequences, because the more information you consume, the more fragile you become. Most of it isn't signal, it's distraction disguised as insight. And when you confuse the two, you don't just make bad decisions, you lose the ability to make any decisions at all." Here's a personal story that changed how I see information. 2 years ago, I was a news junkie. Checked my phone 100 plus times a day, felt informed, important, connected. Then I went camping for a week. No signal. When I came back, I asked a friend, "What did I miss?" He thought for a moment. Nothing really. A whole week of urgent news, and nothing had actually changed. That's when I realized I wasn't staying informed. I was staying distracted. In an anti-fragile system, clarity is everything, and clarity comes not from more input, but from less interference. The most powerful minds in history, they weren't flooded with data. They were anchored in silence. Seneca withdrew daily. Darwin took long walks. Buffett reads in a quiet office, no Bloomberg terminal in sight. They didn't try to keep up with every headline. They learned to ignore them, because they knew something essential. Randomness speaks loudest in the short term. Truth whispers over decades. Taleb illustrates this with a brutal example. If you check your portfolio once a year, you'll likely see gains most years. If you check it every day, you'll see losses about half the time, even if the long-term trend is up. Why? Because noise amplifies losses in perception. The same volatility that's invisible annually becomes torture daily. The same thing happens to your emotional state. You scroll through dopamine spikes, outrage, excitement, fear, and call it being informed. But what you're feeding isn't your awareness, it's your anxiety. There's a reason monks, generals, and visionaries have always valued retreat. Not because they feared action, but because they feared reactivity. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire, but started each day in silence. Churchill painted, Einstein sailed. They knew. The fragile person reacts to every ping, every opinion, every small fluctuation in mood or market. The anti-fragile person, they absorb signal, ignore noise, and respond when it matters. So, how do you filter signal from noise? Taleb gives us the time test. If a piece of information won't matter in a year, it probably doesn't matter now. If it won't change your strategy, it's noise. If it makes you emotional but not effective, it's noise. Ask yourself, will I remember this next month? Does this change my actions? Is this building something lasting? If not, delete it. Not just from your feed, from your focus. I'll share a technique that saved my sanity. I call it the weekly review. Every Sunday I spend 1 hour catching up on anything important from the week. 1 hour. That's it. The rest of the week, no news, no scrolling, no quick checks. You know what I discovered? Everything important finds its way to you. The real news, the signal, rises. The noise, it dies in the silence where it belongs. There's a legendary story of a trader who became wildly successful using a strange method. He stopped watching the market during trading hours, completely. He'd analyze at night, place his orders before the open, then turn everything off. While others panicked at every tick, chased every move, reacted to every headline. He went for walks, read books, had lunch with his wife. His returns, they tripled. Not because he had better information, because he had better filters. Noise makes you fragile because it exhausts your decision-making muscle. Every notification is a micro-decision. Every headline is a tiny stress. By the time you need to make a real choice, you're depleted. But silence restores. It clarifies. It reminds you that reality unfolds over years, not minutes. This week's challenge, go on an information diet. Pick one day. No news, no social media, no market checks, no quick scrolls. Notice what happens. The first few hours, you'll feel anxious. Like you're missing something important. But by the end of the day, you'll feel something else. Clear, calm, powerful. Like you've reclaimed something you didn't know you'd lost. Share below. How many times did you check your phone yesterday? Be honest, then tell us. What would happen if you cut that by 90%? Because once you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your edge. And from that edge, you can see more clearly who deserves your trust and who's playing games with your life. Section 9, Skin in the Game. Only trust those who risk bleeding. There's a rule older than any philosophy textbook, older than any financial model or leadership course. It's the rule of ancient builders, warriors, merchants. If you make the decision, you bear the risk. If the house collapses, the architect suffers. If the ship sinks, the captain goes down with it. It's brutal, but it's honest. It's what Taleb calls skin in the game, and without it, everything else is noise. Let me tell you about 2 financial advisors I met. The first drove a Ferrari, wore a Rolex, quoted market theories like scripture. Impressive, right? Then I asked, how much of your own money follows this advice? He laughed. Oh, I don't invest the same way. Too risky. The second advisor drove a Toyota. But when I asked the same question, he showed me his portfolio, identical to what he recommended. Guess who I trusted with my money? Guess whose clients did better? Skin in the game isn't just about ethics. It's about alignment. Look around. How many people profit when you lose? How many experts get paid whether they're right or wrong? The economist who's never run a business, the war advisor who's never seen combat, the parenting expert with no children, the fitness influencer who's secretly on steroids. These people don't have skin in the game. They have opinions insulated from consequences, and opinions without risk are dangerous, not just worthless. Taleb says, never trust advice from someone who doesn't suffer from being wrong, a restaurant critic who never cooks, a professor who's never worked outside academia, a life coach living in their parents' basement. These people can be wrong forever, and nothing happens to them. That's not just unfair, it's systemically fragile, because when decision makers don't bear consequences, they make increasingly reckless decisions. There's a story from ancient Babylon that sounds insane to modern ears. If a builder constructs a home and it collapses and kills the owner's son, the builder's son is killed. Barbaric? Maybe. But think deeper. That law created the most durable architecture in history. Babylonian bridges still stand. Why? Because every builder knew. Sloppy work meant personal catastrophe. Their DNA was on the line. That's skin in the game at its most visceral. Today, we're surrounded by the opposite. Politicians who send others' children to war. Bankers who socialize losses while privatizing gains. Journalists who destroy reputations without accountability. Each layer of separation between decision and consequence makes the system more fragile, more prone to spectacular failure. Because humans are careful with their own skin, reckless with others. But skin in the game isn't just about avoiding bad actors. It's about finding real ones. The chef who eats his own food. The investor who puts his net worth where his mouth is. The doctor who takes the medicine she prescribes. These people self-regulate, not because they're noble, because they must. Their well-being is tied to their advice. That creates honesty nothing else can. Here's how I apply this in my own life. Before taking any advice, I ask, what does this person lose if they're wrong? If the answer is nothing, or they actually gain, I run. But if they bleed when I bleed, if they win only when I win, that's alignment, that's trust, that's antifragility in human form. Quick story. I once hired 2 consultants. One had beautiful presentations, perfect theories, impressive credentials. The other offered to tie part of his fee to results. Guess which one delivered? The one with skin in the game always outperforms the one with just ideas. Because reality is unforgiving to those who feel its consequences. So here's your filter. Don't listen to anyone who doesn't share your risk. Don't follow leaders insulated from their decisions. And most importantly, put your own skin in the game. Make promises you feel, take positions that could hurt. Build a reputation that suffers when you're wrong. Because when you have skin in the game, you stop playing games. This week's action. Identify one area where you give advice without consequences. Then change it. If you recommend books, read them first. If you suggest investments, make them yourself. If you preach habits, live them publicly. Feel the weight of being wrong. It's uncomfortable. It's also honest. And honesty is anti-fragile. Comment below, who in your life has real skin in the game? Who bleeds when they're wrong? These are your people. Everyone else is just noise with a mouth. Now we've covered the principles. We've seen the patterns. But none of it matters unless you build something real. So let's get practical. Let's design a life that doesn't just survive chaos, but feeds on it. Section 10. Designing Antifragile Lives. You've seen the pieces. Hormesis, Optionality, the Barbell, via Negativa, skin in the game. These aren't just cool ideas to nod at while you scroll. They're building blocks. And now, it's time to stop learning and start building. Because anti-fragility isn't a concept you understand. It's a life you design. And if you do it right, you won't just endure stress. You'll evolve through it. You'll become someone the world cannot break. Not because you're tough, because you're designed intelligently. First, your body. It's not a machine to maintain. It's an anti-fragile system waiting to be activated. That means ending your war with discomfort. Tomorrow morning, start with this. 50 burpees. Can't do 50, do 20, can't do 20, do 5. The number doesn't matter. The practice does. Then, a cold shower. Start with 30 seconds, build to 2 minutes, once a week, fast for 24 hours. Not forever. Just long enough to remind your cells they're descended from survivors. Your ancestors thrived on stress. Bring it back. Controlled, intentional, growth-inducing. Next, your mind. The fragile mind needs certainty. The anti-fragile mind plays with possibilities. Start practicing intellectual hormesis. Once a week, argue the opposite of what you believe. Seriously. Pick your strongest opinion and defend its opposite. Feel your brain resist. Push through. Read books you disagree with, not to mock, but to understand. Engage in debates where you might lose. Write publicly where you might be wrong. Your ego will hate it. Your intelligence will love it. Start becoming hard to kill financially. Build your barbell. 90% boring safety. Pay off debt. Build emergency funds. Live below your means. Boring? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. Then, with 10%, go wild. Start that side project. Buy that cryptocurrency. Angel invest in your friend's startup. Take calculated risks with money you can lose. Most will fail. That's fine. You're not betting on being right. You're positioning for the one that explodes. Relationships need anti-fragility too. Stop building connections that require perfect conditions. Build bonds that get stronger through trials. How? Practice radical honesty. Have the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Share the failure you've been hiding. Admit the fear you've been masking. Watch what happens. Weak relationships will dissolve. Let them. Strong ones will deepen. And you'll discover who's really in your corner when the storms come. Your time is the ultimate testing ground. Most people schedule every minute, then shatter when plans change. Build slack, deliberate emptiness, unscheduled hours. But I'll waste time. No. You'll create space for emergence, for the unexpected conversation that changes everything, for the random insight that solves the problem, for the rest that prevents the breakdown. Your identity might be the most important. Stop being a noun. Start being a verb. Not I'm a marketer, but I solve problems. Not I'm an entrepreneur, but I build things. Nouns are fragile. One job loss and your identity cracks. Verbs are anti-fragile. They adapt to any context. Make your identity fluid. Let it evolve. The more attached you are to who you were, the less able you are to become who you're meant to be. Test your systems constantly. Schedule voluntary hardship. Take the harder route once a week. Skip a meal. Walk instead of drive. Say no to something comfortable. Say yes to something scary. Not to suffer, to strengthen. To build confidence that whispers, whatever comes, I can handle it. Because confidence built on success is fragile. Confidence built on navigation of difficulty, that's anti-fragile. Here's a personal story. 3 years ago, I was pure fragility. One income stream, one identity, one plan. Optimized everything, then life hit. Lost the job. Relationship ended, health scare. The glass vase shattered completely. But in the ruins, I found these principles. Started building differently. Multiple income streams, fluid identity, slack in my schedule, stress in my workouts, honesty in my relationships. Today, I'm not invincible, but I'm anti-fragile. Chaos doesn't scare me anymore. It feeds me. Your design starts today. Pick one area, just one, make it anti-fragile this month, then another next month, then another. Small changes, big revolution. Because when the next shock comes, and it will, you won't just survive, you'll transform. This week's commitment: choose your first anti-fragile experiment. Share it below. Make it public. Make it real. Because the life you want isn't built on avoiding storms. It's built on becoming someone who dances in them. But all of this, every principle, every practice, comes down to one choice, one shift, one decision that changes everything. Are you ready for the truth that sets you free? Section 11, Stop Resisting Chaos. Dance with it. We've been taught to brace, to flinch, to shield ourselves when life gets unpredictable, to build walls, buy insurance, seek guarantees, to resist, control, contain. But what if that's exactly backward? What if the real move isn't defense? What if it's dance? What if chaos isn't a storm to hide from, but a rhythm to move with? I learned this the hard way, spent years trying to control everything, planning every outcome, avoiding every risk. You know what happened? Life kept breaking my plans anyway, but I was so rigid, each break felt like failure. Then came the day everything broke at once. Job, relationship, health, all gone in 3 months. I had 2 choices, become bitter or become better. That's when I stopped resisting, started dancing, and everything changed. Taleb doesn't romanticize volatility, he respects it. Because chaos doesn't care about your spreadsheets, it doesn't follow your timeline, it doesn't ask permission. But here's the secret, it favors those who stop fighting it. Chaos respects adaptation. It rewards systems that bend without breaking, people who pivot without panic, minds that welcome surprise not as threat, but as teacher. Think of a forest fire. We see destruction. Nature sees renovation. Trees burn, yes, but their seeds, sealed for decades, finally crack open in the heat. The ash feeds soil that was depleted. Sunlight reaches the forest floor for the first time in centuries. New life explodes from the char, more diverse, more resilient, more alive. The fire wasn't ending, it was beginning, but only for systems designed to use it. You're the same. You've had your fires, the job that vanished, the love that left, the plan that failed, the diagnosis that changed everything. But if you're here now, breathing, listening, still standing, then you've already danced with chaos. Maybe you didn't call it that. Maybe you called it surviving. But you moved, you adapted, and some part of you, some anti-fragile core, grew stronger in the heat. That's the shift, from seeing chaos as enemy to seeing it as energy, from asking why me to asking what now, from praying for calm seas to building better boats. The fragile person spends their life trying to avoid storms. The anti-fragile person learns to sail in them, not recklessly, intelligently, with systems built for reality, not fantasy. The world won't slow down. Technology will accelerate. Markets will convulse. Relationships will challenge. Health will fluctuate. Certainty will remain a luxury you can't afford. But when you stop demanding predictability and start practicing adaptability, something shifts. You stop being afraid. Not because you're naive, because you're prepared. Not for any specific future, for any possible future. You learn to say, bring the storm. I know how to move. Bring the change. I know how to evolve. Bring the unexpected. I've built my life to use it. And suddenly, life becomes something else. Not a tightrope to balance on, but a dance floor to explore. Not a problem to solve, but a mystery to engage. The chaos doesn't disappear, but your fear of it does. I'll end with a story. Last year, a friend faced every entrepreneur's nightmare. Biggest client gone. Revenue slash 70%. Most would panic. He smiled. Finally, he said, forced evolution. Within 6 months, he'd rebuilt. Not just recovered, transformed. Better clients, better model, better life. The crisis didn't break him. It broke his attachment to the old way. That's anti-fragility in human form. So the next time life breaks something, let it. Then build better. The next time you lose, learn, then level up. The next time something ends, smile, then begin. You don't have to predict. You don't have to control. You just have to move. Designed for chaos. Welcome disorder. Dance with life. Stop asking for easier lives. Build stronger selves. Stop seeking calmer seas. Become better sailors. Stop fearing change. Start using it. Because once you stop resisting, everything starts flowing. Once you stop fighting chaos, you start dancing with it. And dancers never fall. They just find new moves. Ready to stop fighting and start flowing? Type I dance below. Let that be your declaration, not just for this video, for this life. Because the music isn't stopping. The only question is, Will you sit it out, or will you dance? Become antifragile. You've just been given a new lens, not a self-help pep talk, not another productivity hack, a fundamental restructuring of how you see reality. Every idea you've heard, Hormesis, optionality, via Negativa, barbell positioning, skin in the game, they're not just concepts, they're invitations. Invitations to rebuild your life on principles that don't fear stress, but feast on it. So, the question now is not, did you enjoy this? The question is, what fragile system will you redesign first? What comfortable trap will you escape? What deliberate stress will you add to grow stronger? Look at your life right now, your health, your money, your relationships, your mind. Ask the only question that matters. What here gets stronger under pressure? If the answer is nothing, then today is day one of your redesign. Not by adding complexity, by subtracting fragility, not by perfecting control, by embracing intelligent chaos. If this message hits something deep, something that's been waiting for permission to stop playing life on safe mode, don't let it slip. Leave a comment, I choose antifragile. Let that be your line in the sand, your public commitment, because what you declare, you begin. And what you begin with courage compounds into transformation. If you're part of the rare tribe that sees volatility not as curse but curriculum, subscribe. Not for content, for community. We're building something here that isn't about views or likes. It's about creating lives that benefit from disorder, about thinking in decades while others panic about days, about becoming people the world cannot break. Share this with one person who gets it, someone tired of fragile advice from comfortable people, someone ready to stop optimizing for the world that was and start designing for the world that is, someone who understands the future belongs to those who dance with chaos. Before you click away, remember this. Taleb's ultimate message isn't about finance or philosophy. It's about physics. The wind extinguishes a candle but feeds a fire. The same force that destroys the weak empowers the strong. The only difference? Design. Your job is not to predict the next storm. Your job is to become the thing that grows stronger when it comes, to stop being the candle, to become the fire. Now, go build something anti-fragile. Start small. Start today. Start with one choice that scares you slightly but excites you deeply. Because on the other side of that choice is the person you're meant to become. Not perfect, not invulnerable, but unbreakable in the ways that matter. The storm is coming. It always is. Will you hide from it, or will you dance? Choose wisely, choose anti-fragile, choose now.